Got a few too. All right. While we're doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce Mike Corak. Mike is the president and general manager of DAC Group. The agency works with companies that have physical footprints and in digital marketing. Mike's been around the block a little bit and has worked with Bank of America, FedEx, Farmers, all these kind of guys. And hey, that's me. We ran out of intro people. Was that all right? I'm happy to do it. But anyway, that's me. Nice to meet you. So you're probably wondering, what the heck is local digital marketing? And when did we pass version 1.0? And if I use lasers, will I time travel to the future of local digital marketing? And you might be wondering, maybe I'm already there, because there's Pokemon and everything like that. So maybe we're done with this session. And then maybe you start wandering off a little bit saying, I wonder if my cat will like this laser. Maggie. Or what's the future of cats and lasers? But I'm going to ask you to snap out of that and come back to me. And we're going to talk a little bit about local digital marketing. So today, we will talk about opportunities that we have for large and small organizations. As I understand, we've got a mix here. And we'll try to have some fun along the way. Does that sound good? Okay, let's do it. So get your lasers ready. This is going to be interactive. Don't hurt me. We've got a disclaimer. So repeat after me. I, your name, not your name, swear that I will not burn anyone's eyes out with my laser, especially Mike's. And practice here. See if you can get this thing. That's pretty good. Some people have had too much caffeine. Okay, so when we see this thing, I'm going to ask you to vote and that kind of stuff. So really try to do it, and we can all see what we think along the way. So what is local digital marketing? I said when you see this thing. Well, a lot of people think it's just maps. And that really was kind of 1.0. And still today when we talk to people, it's let's say, yeah, I'm doing local digital marketing. I've got a pin on a map. And that's part of it, no doubt. And here's our chart, and you've seen these from lots of agencies, of all the places your data can go and where maps can show up and all that good stuff. And a lot of people think about this as listings. And listings are important. We don't want to downgrade them today. This stat shows 81% of consumers go online to search for products and services to make local buying decisions, even if they're going to a store. And 73% of people lose trust in a brand when their listings are incorrect. So that's a pretty big deal. We've got to get our listings right. And that is a part of local digital marketing. So we call that the NAP, name, address, phone number. And it's really important. But it's not about just having that right and pushing it around the internet anymore. In fact, if you want your data to show up and show up in the places that you want it to, you've got to pay attention to a lot of different factors now. So part of it's having your name, address, phone number right, but a lot of it's having signals that, like social signals or on-page signals or link signals and review signals and personalization, and all those things kind of factor into how you rank now for a map listing, believe it or not, or a local listing. And that, for you, those of you who have been around search like I have for a long time, that probably sounds like SEO to you a little bit from a few years back, right? And that is the trend we're seeing. And it's pretty important to understand that. So just distributing data anymore is not enough. So what I like to say is local digital marketing is a lens and not a listing. So what do I mean by that? Beyond just having your information listed, you've got to think about your content now and these reviews. You've got to think about what your website's doing, social, all these connection points, paid media. And so really, when you think about local digital marketing today, you're thinking about all the things you can do in digital marketing, but how do you localize them too? And that's really the trick. And so the pieces we'll go over today are going to kind of talk about each component of digital marketing and how you can localize it a bit. So let's take a temperature check here and see where do you most need to localize your digital efforts today. And then we'll see if the votes are still the same at the end. So it's pretty spread, but lots of search. Okay, that's good to know. So let's start with search then. How did I do that? That was kind of magic, right? So you definitely need to be found here. This is a big deal. And if you've seen how the search engine result pages have changed over the years, you know that this chunk is huge now, right? We've got a couple paid listings. Then a lot of times if it's localized anyway, you've got the map pack and a bunch of listings. And maybe you get to some organic listings now. And that's starting to grow. So again, name, address, phone number, listings, super important. But even though we've all known this for a while, here's what we're still seeing. And I spoke at a construction conference a little while back. You can imagine how exciting that was. And we decided live we'd search for construction company, and this was in Charlotte. No construction companies came up. In fact, the #1 listing was for a construction company was a real estate developer, the beach company. And even the beach company, if you look, they didn't have their business claimed. So it was just by luck and the fact that nobody else was there. Now, this doesn't happen in real competitive markets, but it's an extreme, but we still do see this. So there's room for improvement here. So, tip #1, make sure you're claiming all of your listings. It's super important. Hey, just by show of hands too, who would say they work at a big company? And then who's a smaller, scrappy company? All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about tips for both. But you big company people, there's a lot of you. Leave these guys alone. So back to the local search ranking factors. There's some things you really want to do to make sure you're covering your bases here. Claiming your listings on all relevant sites is important. And if you think back to that big spider web we had, there's a lot of sites now. And a lot of services are used now to claim those sites. So there's local listings on Facebook and Google and Yelp and on and on and on, thousands and thousands of sites. And your industry might actually have niche sites too. So having your listings claimed is really, really important across that. One thing to note about Google too, Google just doesn't look at what's on Google. They look at what's on all of these sites as well to kind of bring that back and rank. So you can't have just one, which is unfortunate. It would be a lot easier. You want to choose your categories wisely. So I don't know if if you're familiar there, but you can see, especially in Google, you can say, here's my business. I can pick some categories that I want to be about, and that's a big deal in how you rank. You can test those too, but getting that right is really critical to your listing ranking. You can manage and distribute your data. We talked enough about that. One thing to note here is that these sites change every once in a while, and your data can change too, even if you don't want it to accidentally. So it's important to kind of watch that and see if it does change and do something about it if it does. You've got to link these listings back to your site. It is a factor in ranking to show that you're relevant to your site, and making sure your listings have that link is really critical. And you have to have an active web presence where applicable. So let's say you've got a Facebook page for your business with your address, but you never post anything. If somebody comes there, that's kind of a poor experience, right? And then you want to test and refine. And there was just a new search algorithm update for local that came out. Possum, did you guys hear about this? So some people love it. They're cute. It's nice. That helps some people. Some people hate it. But basically what Possum is doing is it's not taking the listings so literally. It's trying to say, hey, maybe there's a service area for this business. Maybe there's opportunity to not just, look at where this person's at, but also bring in relevant results. So the bottom line here is Google's getting smarter. So are the other sites too. So it's important that you don't just put these listings up and forget about them. You actually manage them. Another concept we'll talk more about later is just data anywhere. And so this is the idea that your local data is really important and you need to manage it too. So not just distributing it to these sites, but we're starting to see trends where you need to use this data in other places. And like I said, we'll get to it at the end, but imagine something like Pokemon Go if there are ads one day there. Well, you may want to feed your local data there, so it's got to be clean and fresh and managed too. So it's not just about where it's distributed, it's also where you actually may end up using it in the future. Okay, so here's a question for you. Only 2 choices. How much does the right local search tool matter? Most say a lot. I hate to burst your bubble. I was just up at Forrester a couple months ago, and they're reviewing, and the new thought is there's so many great tools now that the tool quality isn't as important. What really matters now is the hustle. So what do we mean by that? The effort that we're taking in to manage our data, the content that we're having, where we link in, the places where it's at, and the activity around it is far more important and will get you far further than what a tool's going to do for you. That's basically distributing and just kind of reporting on it. So bottom line here is you need effort behind this initiative, even if it's just a listing. So this is a part where we'll vote, and we'll do this each time. So for local search, what we just talked about, who do you think has the edge, the big companies or the small ones? I think so too. It's a lot easier when you've got a few places versus thousands and thousands to manage it, right? It's a lot easier to get good content up in that kind of scale too. So there are some advantages to being a smaller business in these places. In an enterprise situation, you've got to really take care of this for each and every listing and try to beat out these guys at every local level. It's very difficult to do. All right, so let's take another laser break. Where's Waldo? You guys are not very good at this. This might be easier. Okay. All right, back to it. All right, so localized assets. So how can you take websites, your content, that kind of thing, and localize it? So first question, do you have a responsive website? Good. You're better than the average. There's still 50% of sites that aren't mobile friendly out there, which is bad. And that makes it really hard to localize. If your website isn't going to be friendly on a mobile device and you've got local content that people are consuming there, it's trouble. So it really is table stakes. So good job. It's nice to see such high proportions now. And Google cares about it too. So Google really thinks about user experience. And some of the updates that have been happening in the last few years are really about, are you making a great user experience for your customer coming in? And contextually, is that right too? So for local, it's really important if you want to rank and be seen that you've got a good mobile experience. So if you don't have a responsive website, that's your number one thing probably you need to do out of this conference. You can't just go home and do it, or I'd tell you to. It'll take a little bit more effort, but it's really important at this point. So let's think about kind of what else that means to be mobile mature. We need to think about mobile content, design, emails, your site, landing pages, apps, mobile-friendly media, a local aware SEO effort, local marketing integration, and mobile analytics. And you're starting to see this picture come together, right? If you want a good local marketing program, you kind of have to hit all these pieces. It's a bad experience if somebody searches on Google, finds you in the map pack, gets to your landing page, they can't see it on their phone, right? And then if they get to that landing page and they go to the site, they're having a hard time too. So a complete kind of experience is what we're after now. And then hopefully we'll never stay mobile again. Not quite yet, but we're getting there. All right, some other things to watch for on your website to make sure that you're doing good here is looking at your store locator. So can it be crawled by Google? Does it have the right information? Is that information matching up with your local listings? All very critical. Your results page, is that legible? Is it good in mobile? And does everything correspond with your listings? Your store pages, do those line up to you? And something that we're seeing more here is integrated data. So this is an example of where this local store page may show actually inventory that's in that store that you could go and purchase, maybe even buy and walk in. So starting to bring that local experience together is important. And then, are your calls to action really great on a mobile device too? If you've got those covered, you're doing pretty good these days. So let's talk a little bit about email. What percentage of emails are opened via mobile these days, do you think? It's kind of a loaded question because it's saying only. So that the right answer is actually 54%, but if you look at some stats that combine them, it's higher. And we all know where we're going, right? This is going to be 90, 100% pretty soon, probably. But again, as we're thinking about a local experience, we need to make sure that we're mobile friendly here too. So if you've got local content and people can't see it on their device on email, we've got trouble. This is an email I just got. It was kind of interesting, and it's a good way to tie in local information. So this company sells Halloween stuff. We moved to the area recently, and houses are different than what we had in Phoenix, and you can put things on your roof even. You've got porches, and man, that means at my house we need new Halloween stuff. So we started looking and online, and I haven't ordered yet, and the company knows that, and they're trying to give me some discounts, but they also know we're getting pretty close to Halloween. So new just this last week, some things started dropping in that I didn't have before. So you can see on the top, it says time is running out. The next call to action right away is get to our store locator. Then we're starting to talk about why don't you buy it and come to the store. Here are some stores by you. And again, that buy online and pick up in store. So that's a great example of a local tie-in that means a lot because I'm running out of time and I need to get over there and pick some stuff up. You got it? All right. So thinking some more about localized content opportunities, here's some basics that work really well, and they can go into emails or your site or what have you. Custom store information. Don't be afraid to kind of talk about real directions, not Google directions. So, if you're in a small town and your store is, just beyond the post office, say it. Bring employees in. Think about local phone numbers. Make sure this is a real good local experience. Local inventories we talked about. Local community information is important too to show that you're part of it. And this is definitely something that's a lot easier to do when you're a small business. Local employment opportunities, if you've got them, put them up there. Posting to local content hubs, engaging with local influencers. All this really builds out local perception and can make a big difference in your footprint. So reviews, we all know they're important, right? Here's some quick stats. 92% of people regularly read reviews. 90% say reviews influence their purchase. 88% of people trust online reviews from a stranger as much as their friends. And it only takes 1 to 3 negative reviews for most people to decide not to buy. And obviously in a local marketing program, this couldn't be more important. The problem is this, reviews are kind of hard to come by. So 90% of people read online reviews, but only 6% of them write them. And we all know that they're more likely to write a bad one than a good one too. So as part of your local marketing strategy, you've got to really be thinking about how do I get more? There's starting to be some tools available, and you've probably seen some of this. Review solicitation tools, we have one of those. A lot of platforms do now. But the idea is that after somebody has an experience, you could email them or prompt them in some way to give you a review. Good software can help you decide if you want to post that review to certain places, so you can filter them by score and the like. But really asking is a big deal, and I know this is no new news to you guys. You've seen this stuff before, but the automation's coming, and that's nice. So when it comes to localized assets, who do you think has the edge? Yeah, that's a tough one. I struggle with it too, and I agree that when you've got more resources that you can throw at it and more tools and a little bit more budget, it's a little bit easier as an enterprise company to make that happen. All right, one more laser break. Let's do some tattoo removal. Save the beeb. Good job, good job. You almost got them all. There's one more there. Yeah. Yeah, that's not him. I can't point this. All right. We're getting there, guys. Local digital promotion. So, you know, we're well beyond listings now, and we're starting to think about ways to promote our local data. So local social opportunities are widespread, right? We can manage our reviews. We talked about that. We can offer local contacts. We can make sure to look at all possible review and feedback outposts. This is a common mistake we see when we're building digital marketing plans, is that people aren't looking at reviews at all the places they could be. They'll see them on Facebook or some of the major ones, but not some of these smaller sites, and those actually end up in other places. Posting locally relevant content, we talked about that a little bit, and publicizing community involvement, we talked a little bit about that. And then targeting locally to amplify with paid social is really important too. So as you guys all know, it's pretty hard to see any sort of social content anymore unless you put some money behind it. The good news on the local front is that it doesn't cost a whole lot and you can really target. So this needs to be part of your program. It's a pain in the butt on the enterprise level, no doubt. It takes a lot of hands-on management. And then for the local guys, it's actually very easy. So if you're not doing that now, I definitely would encourage it, and definitely think about budgeting next year for these kind of things. There's a lot of local paid media opportunities now too, and we see a lot of holes here in many companies' digital marketing plans these days. So there's the obvious, Google and Facebook and the like. One that we love that seems to be working out, it's kind of new, is Waze. And you can, I don't know if you guys have seen that, when the brand logo comes up, that's a paid for opportunity. And there's a lot of inventory there to buy. Mobile ads are important too. Almost all display platforms let you target locally at this point. There's programmatic opportunities. So long story short, for your local marketing opportunities, definitely build in a local media budget and make sure it's not just search. Speaking of search though, still really important and super critical. Google's really make a lot of innovation here. We have had kind of a free channel, if you will, for a while, and other sites are following too. So, you know, there's opportunity coming for promoted pins that you can have now. If you buy a local extension in your ad, I don't know if you guys have seen some of the paid ads start to come up in the map pack. We expect all of that to really blow up and become opportunities just for paid. So obviously we're kind of building here. If your local data is not right, you don't really want to pay for it and promote it. We need to kind of get the organic part right too. But expect that Google's gonna, and other sites, Bing and the like, are gonna really want to make some money off these channels. And this is coming fast and furious now. Some of the cool stuff that's coming, you may have heard about it. Beacons you've all heard of, right? But Google and Facebook and the like too are starting to track more consumer information about where you're at. So imagine that you've got a local listing on the maps, somebody clicks through, they happen to be in a store and they've got a Google property open, and that can come back to you. That's a real nice closed loop that any local marketer knows they don't have right now. We can't necessarily tell if somebody actually makes it or buys in store, right? But if somebody actually gets there, that's pretty valuable, and we can start putting some dollars on that. So watch for more of this. A lot of this stuff is in beta, and it's kind of clunky, frankly, right now, but it's coming around. And you know, our feeling is that if those metrics come back and we can really prove it, it just changes the game. And I would suspect a lot of brand level kind of dollars are going to start coming to this local kind of level. And you know, as you're seeing, it's a lot more hustle work. So we're going to want to make sure we've got resources that can handle it. So when it comes to localized promotion, who do you think wins? I think so too. It's pretty cheap to do this stuff, especially one-off. It's a lot easier for the small guys to make that happen and cover their bases. It's very hard to buy this on an enterprise level and manage it down to each location. It takes a lot of work. All right, so last piece, data integration. This is really what this is all building up to. So let's say you've got really good local data and it's ready to travel. and it's clean and you manage it, you can really start giving that to people in personalized experiences. And you can start building experiences too that you wouldn't have imagined before, because there's platforms now that can take it, and there's more coming. And all that's just using your local data in new ways. So a couple things you'd be familiar with. Have you heard of sort of the Uber development platform, where they're allowing some API access and the like? So what you can do, and a simple example of that would be like a United app that has Uber right there, and you can start booking right through the app. A different example would be something that a local company is doing, where you can actually start giving people data in Uber a little bit about based on where they're headed. So there's a case study around Guitar Center. So if somebody knows they're taking an Uber, or if Guitar Center knows somebody's taking an Uber to one of their stores, they could start giving them some content along the way, which is pretty cool, right? And that's free. But to do that, you've got to have good local data and have that clean. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. Local data being used everywhere is coming, and it's time to be ready for it. We might even start advertising here, and I know it sounds crazy, but this is another example, right? So Pokemon Go is working all based on local technology and data that's already in there. Imagine if you could start loading up stores and have people come in and interact, right? All that kind of stuff is real, and especially in games, this is pretty remarkable stuff. So data integration, who do you think has the edge? Kind of nobody, but the big guys are going to win this one, right? Like this one's a lot easier because you might have a developer that could hook up to an API. That's kind of hard to do on our own, right? So fun stuff coming here. All right, so we'll wrap it up. Now, where do you think you need to focus your local dollars and effort? Yeah. Yeah, it's true. That is the future. But the other truth is that you've got to get these other things right before that makes a whole lot of sense. That's what I've got. Are there any questions? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be wide open, yeah. You can just get after it. So it's more your imagination at this point. Yeah, pretty awesome. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the toughest situation. It's so hard for franchisees to live within the rules and still do what they want to do. So we have some clients that are that exact same scenario, or they've got some freedom on the local level to do some marketing. And in most cases, there's some sort of brand guidelines about what you can do and can't. And the good companies allow you some freedom there. So we always say, let's start there and see what the rules are. For local listings, a lot of times they'll work with a company like ours maybe and say, here's the preferred vendor, and let's get the data out there and take some of that off their back. But maybe allow them to log in and change things if they need to. And then from there is where the fun stuff comes. So if there's some freedom there, you could use like a brand email template, right, that's ready to go, and then put in your own content and start building that. Or maybe you've got access to your Facebook page, and you can, there's design things that are locked down and some rules there, but you can start posting local content, that kind of thing. So, long story short, I think you want to use the power of the brand to be legitimate, but then push the freedom as much as you can. And we've got a big insurance client. What we see with the agents that really take advantage of it, they'll start out ranking or being much louder than their other guys that could be just down the street in competition. So they can be a smaller agency, but have a way bigger footprint online by just taking a couple hours a week and making it happen. I did not, but that's a good idea. Yeah, so a local influencer might be, I'm thinking about the Home and Garden, convention going on here, and we may have somebody on the news who talks about those topics. And so that might make a whole big difference for somebody in Louisville to see that person talking about it. But you wouldn't want that person necessarily to represent, if you're part of a franchise like we were talking about nationally, the recognition wouldn't be there. But here in town it would. So you could see an email that would feature that person potentially that's segmented by people that just live in the area. Yeah. And we're seeing that become more common too. But again, it's a lot of hustle work, so you've got to plan for that. Cool. All right. Well, if you think of anything else, let me know. Thanks so much.